All right, what's up, everybody? So, I think I finally got this bad boy figured out to where it'll actually allow me to give the webinar and it will actually allow me to be heard. So, and then you guys, if you can hear me, please leave me a comment. Last time we had some audio issues, and I want to make sure before I start that that's not going to be an issue. And then I'm actually trying to figure out the best way to use the comments on Facebook specifically. I've never actually seen or used the live video through the Facebook platform. I normally do it through a different platform, and so just trying to feel that out. All right, cool. So audio is good. What's up, Tyre? All right, cool. Let's kick it then. Sweet. Here we go. So today we're going to talk about the VA loan. More importantly, house hacking. And the VA loan is just a way to increase the ability that you can, the return you can get. So here we go. So, all right, what is house hacking? House hacking is where you purchase a property with the intent to rent rooms or units out to tenants or friends or whoever, and they are going to cover a piece, or if you do it right, all of your mortgage. And yes, before we get into all the objections and craziness later on, this works in affordable markets and it works in extremely expensive markets. So I'm eager to kind of walk you guys through some scenarios here. I've done this 3 times, looking at maybe doing it a fourth time with an office again. And I'm going to talk through some of those strategies, and then at the end we will do some Q&A. This is going to be a shorter webinar presentation, and then we'll do questions and answers at the end because I think that's absolutely valuable and oftentimes more valuable. So, house hacking, right? This is how I got started in real estate. Back in 2015, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Then I read all the Bigger Pockets books, and I was hooked. And I got into house hacking. I used an FHA loan because I didn't know anything about the VA loan, and I got talked out of it by my lender, who said you could only use it once, which is wrong. And I bought a duplex, and I bought that duplex for, I believe, $81,000, and it currently, the most recent appraisal was 140, and it's currently rented for, I think, 1150. So I think 575 each side. And prior to that, when I first bought it, it was 425 on one side, and I lived in the other. So my story is essentially I was in a 2-bedroom apartment, and I was paying 550 a month, and then I got to move into this bad boy, and my mortgage was like 615, so a little bit higher, but the tenant was paying 425, and so I went from paying like 550 a month to live in a 2-bed 1-bath apartment to paying like 150 a month to own a 2-1 on each side duplex that was bigger and had a yard and had a shop. So that was my first experience. And then when I moved out of the house, um, I moved to Hawaii, and all of a sudden I rented the other side, and I was cash flowing, and it was great, and I loved it, and that was kind of what got me started in real estate in general. So let's dig in. Oh, there we go. All right, here's my experience house hacking. Now I told you already the story on the first one. Oh, 475, not 425. So duplex in 2015, purchase was 81. There you go. So right there, you see $110 difference in my principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and the rent. And then obviously that's up now. Now it's like 575 a side, and it's appreciated a lot. And so that was 550 at the time that I built this out, and now it's 575. So current cash flow on this bad boy is about 300. It kind of fluctuates as anything, right, depending on maintenance, but somewhere between $200 and $300 a month. And I got into this for less than $4,000, including LVP on the floor and uh, painting some decks and stuff like that. Aloha. All right. Rental arbitrage. So I actually built this presentation a little bit ago, and at the time, I was living in a rental that I was paying $3,000 a month for in San Diego County in Oceanside, and I was renting, and then $500 for utilities and stuff, and I was averaging about $2,400 a month on Airbnb. And then towards the end, my buddy John actually moved in with me. I gave him a discount because he needed to hand out. I guess it's not as funny if he's not on here, but no, John and I it was like the best roommate situation. 2 real estate dudes crushing it, talking about goals. It was great. Uh, Held each other accountable, and he paid a little bit of rent. Yep, and then I Airbnb'd another room. So ultimately, I was able to write off a large amount of the income from the Airbnb side because of business expenses and whatever, as well as income from my business that I was using out of one of the bedrooms, and uh, ultimately I ended up living for free in San Diego County. And then the most recent one, which I haven't actually added to this PowerPoint presentation, and I should, is that I'm currently living in a house in Springfield, Missouri, where the upstairs I'm Airbnbing, and the downstairs has a walk. It's a big house, and the downstairs has a walkout basement that's a 2-1, and we are using the basement as my office for me and my there's three employees who work out of this office with me, and then the Airbnb upstairs rents for on average about $2,500 a month, and my mortgage is $1,900. So the Airbnb covers all the expenses, and I basically have a free office. So that's the power of house hacking, right? And we're going to dig in a little bit more to all the good stuff. Every time I click on the Facebook memo, I have to like re-click on the PowerPoint to go to the next slide. So I apologize. All right. So there's a lot of ways you can do this. The most conventional is to buy a duplex, triplex, fourplex, and rent out the other units while you live in one. But you could also do, my buddy Rio had I think it was a 5-bed, 3-bath, or 5-bed, 4-bath house, big house outside of Camp Pendleton. And he rented 4 of the bedrooms out to other single lieutenants and captains. And he was a lieutenant, then captain. And he lived in it, and they lived in it. And they had it was a really, really nice house on a awesome in an awesome neighborhood, and they had a pool table, and it was the works. Like, that's where we went to watch the Super Bowl. That's where we went to hang out. Super, super, super awesome place. And he was able to live for free. In fact, cash flow with those other 4 people paying to live in that house. So that's another way to do it. And then you could turn your garage into a small unit. You could build a detached ADU or in-law suite. That's popular. There's some people on here from Hawaii that are commenting, and that's very popular out there. And then another strategy is a motorhome. And you could, rent a motorhome out that you have parked on your driveway. Or you could live in the motorhome and rent the house. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy ways to house hack, but the end game strategy is just to rent out as much of the house as you can for as much money so that you're living for free, and we'll explain why that's important in a minute. All right. Here's the main reasons that I love this, right? It's a primary residence mortgage for one. So it's a 30-year fixed rate, really, really, really solid mortgage product, which is awesome. Coffee break. I don't. It's kind of weird that you guys can't see me. You just see the PowerPoint slides. I can't figure out how to fix that. But all right. So primary residence mortgage. So low down payment, low interest rate, 30 years fixed. Best lending product, lending terms you're going to get. Then you also get to benefit from the 4 major pillars of real estate: cash flow, depreciation, appreciation, and principal pay down, right? So your tenants are paying down your loan, your property, you're benefiting from depreciation. Your property is, over the long term, going to go up in value most likely. And then your cash flow, either then or when you move out. And then you get to avoid analysis paralysis. So to put this in perspective, it is very expensive, or not expensive. It's nerve-wracking for a lot of people to get into investing, right? And so they avoid it, and they have this analysis paralysis thing where they look for everything to be perfect on a deal before they ever pull the trigger. And I promise you, it's very easy to find a reason not to buy a house. There's always something that you could say, well, nope, not this one. So what this does is investing is scary and nerve-wracking, and a lot of people will try to talk you out of it. But buying a house for yourself is less scary and less nerve-wracking, and less people are going to try to talk you out of it. So what you can do is you can use this as a way to bunny hop into your first investment, because you're buying a fourplex, but you're living in it. So you're buying yourself a house, which is way less scary psychologically for whatever reason than buying an investment. And people are going to be much more supportive. But then I promise you're going to get hooked on it, and it's going to be great. So, and then you can increase your savings gap. So what you would have been spending on rent, you can now pocket and you can save that, which means you can then invest more, which is amazing. Like cutting your living expenses is one of the fastest ways to exponentially increase your net worth as long as you're smart enough to reinvest the living expenses. Robert, good to see you, man. Glad to have you join us. All right, what's next? Okay, here's some of the downsides, right? Because I'm not the rose-colored glasses guy. This is about as real and authentic as it gets, right? So downsides to house hacking: you're gonna live next to your tenants. That sucks in a lot of ways. The tenants may know you own the house. Personally, I hired a property manager and never told the tenants that I owned it. Actually, I take that back. I made the mistake on the first purchase, and they knew that I owned it. And I learned very quickly that that was not ideal because they always have some kind of an issue that they're going to bring up to you, and you don't care. Most of the stuff that they're coming up with is not a big deal, and they're going to be bringing it up to you instead of the property manager. So, my advice is hire a property manager and never let them know that you own the place. Just, they gripe about the landlord. You're like, oh, yeah, the landlord, he's the worst. But they don't know, so they don't bug you. The location may not be perfect because, you're probably not going to be in a Class A neighborhood, like gated area if um, if you're in like a fourplex, right? Most likely it's going to be a, Class B, maybe Class C neighborhood. And it's not going to be your dream home. Most people don't dream about sharing walls or floor and ceiling with tenants, right? That's not like, oh my goodness, I can't wait to buy a fourplex and live sandwiched between my tenants and hear them, doing whatever all night. And then it's going to be hard to let things be passive. And what I mean by that is when I lived in the house, the tenant would do things that really don't matter in the grand scheme of things, and it would drive me nuts. And so I would want to fix these things, even though they were non issues, because I lived there and I saw them. So, prime example, they built like a awning over the deck on their side with a tarp and some, they propped it up with like a ladder and some other random stuff. Very redneck looking thing. Uh, Not a big deal. Didn't do any damage to the property at all, but it drove me nuts. So I remember like talking to my property manager about it at one point, and she was the one who was like, "It's not a big deal. Just leave them alone." Like, okay, well, thank you. And but it was bugging me, and so it's very easy to be like you're stressed about like, oh, the nasty tenant didn't clean the house the way I would like or didn't mow the grass. Well, none of that really matters in the grand scheme of things if they're paying rent and they're not trashing the place. So, if you're living there, you just got to know like not every issue is really an issue. But all right, this is a fancy photo that's I didn't really deal with it, Jason. I ultimately just told myself it wasn't a big deal and ignored it. And it really wasn't. They didn't damage anything. So it was great. It was easy. Look at this photo that's like 7 years old. I have a rocker, hopefully soon a second rocker, a beard. You know, things have changed. But nonetheless, I had to put a photo on here of me because that seemed more personal than like some template crap. So that's what you get. All right. So opportunities for service members. The VA loan, right? The VA loan is, despite what everybody wants to scream about on the internet about it not being perfect, it is the best primary residence mortgage available. You're not going to pay mortgage insurance premium. You're not going to pay private mortgage insurance. You're not going to pay a down payment unless you want to. If you're 10% disabled, the funding fee is no longer a thing, or if you have a Purple Heart, the funding fee is really not that bad. People get caught up on the funding fee. It is less than what you would pay in MIP and PMI with an FHA loan by a long shot. It's less than a lot of other loan origination fees and points. And realistically, you could pay it up front. People get upset that it's wrapped into the loan. Like, you could pay it up front if you want to, but you don't have to. That's the beauty. So the VA loan is phenomenal. There's a lot of benefits to it. Appraisals are coming back faster for it in a lot of cases. I would just tell you this, that, and this is not the point of this webinar, but if you're having issues with the VA loan, it's most likely your agent and or lender. And if your agent and or lender are trying to tell you not to use the VA loan, you need a new one. And if they're not able to get anything approved, then you need a new one. I have in our network of people that we have kind of vetted, there are agents and lenders that have been just crushing VA loans in all of the most chaotic markets: San Diego, Oahu, Washington D.C., yada yada. Um, and so I definitely recommend if you're struggling with that, or if you're looking to do that, hit me up. Happy to give you an introduction to one of the agents in our network if they're in the same place that you're going. We've done a lot of vetting and whatever, and we've got a pretty solid group of people that are closing VA loans. So if someone's telling you you can't do it, they're wrong, and we're happy to help. I'm going to answer this real quick, and then we'll move on. Eric, no, not really. So you should I'll tell you this, you should plan to spend between 1 to 3% of the mortgage on closing costs with the VA loan. There are ways to avoid paying that, right? Lenders can credit, seller can credit, I mean, heck, agent could credit, but it's best if you budget for it just to be safe, because there's not like a guarantee that you're not going to have to pay it. Um, More coffee. All right, frequent relocations. Now I know this doesn't seem like a great benefit, but it's all about the way you look at it. My buddy Dave Campbell owns a couple properties in North Carolina, a property in Texas, a couple properties in San Diego. Now he owns one out here in Missouri because I sold it to him. And but he's bought in several different locations. Now I'm not somebody who's going to tell you that you should buy in every location, and I'm not somebody who's going to tell you that you should always buy a house, right? That's not the case. But in a lot of situations, it makes sense if you buy the right way. And I think house hacking makes most purchases make sense. If you do it right, you could buy a house hack in most markets and be okay. And so frequently relocating means that you can then use primary mortgages again. So you can use the VA loan again. You could use an FHA loan. Maybe you use a USDA loan. There's all kinds of different options. You could use just a normal 5% conventional loan, which you got to put 5% down, but that's better than 20. So relocating to different locations means that you can then use the VA loan or the FHA or all these other really good loan products again to house hack again while you're kind of accumulating doors. So that's a benefit. If you're near a base, military tenants. Now, I actually don't think that, like, I wrote an article about this, like hunting military tenants is like the way to go. In fact, I don't know that you can specifically target for them other than just like the way you market. There are pros and cons, but generally speaking, they're probably cleaner and a little bit more responsible, despite what young enlisted people like myself used to do for funsies on the weekend. If nothing else, worst case scenario, you can always go to their command and say, "Hey, like this is what happened, blah blah blah," and they'll figure it out for you, right? So there is some security there. Used to harsh living conditions. So I wrote this in there as a joke, but ultimately, like, for anyone who's ever been deployed, like if you're used to the barracks, living in a fourplex is not a downside. Like if you're used to living in like a massive single family house on 40 acres, moving into a fourplex is going to be like, it's gonna feel like it sucks. But if you're used to living in the barracks, no big deal. And if you're used to deployments or living on a ship or whatever, like, service members are uniquely qualified to live in fourplexes next to other people. Yeah, Kevin, absolutely all about it. All depends on what VA lender and VA realtor, um, that you're using. Jason, I'll send you a link here when this is done. And then Ian, yes, absolutely. And I've actually got a breakdown of the funding fee and the closing costs and all that stuff. And it's, yeah, absolutely hands down the VA loan wins. And to just the one argument that I hear on that is that 20% down is safer than 0% down. Yes and no. If you only have 20% of a purchase price, I would say zero down and keeping that 20% in your bank account in case a water heater goes out or whatever, you lose your job, anything is much safer than putting that 20% in the property and having nothing in your savings account, right? So, yeah. All right. I'm going to let you guys read this if you'd like, but I will also be happy to email this out if you hit me up or whatever, but, or just introduce you to people, right? Because anyone I introduce you to is going to understand all this, but, you can do zero down. You can use for duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes, you can use 75% of the gross rental income towards your debt to income ratio. So what that means is if Those 3 units are rented for $1,000 a piece, so $3,000. Each one can count as $750, 75%, towards your income. So 1,500, 2,250 that you can count towards your income. So if you were making $5,000 a month, then the then you're going to be able to make it'll look like 7,250. Also, VA disability, if you qualify for that already, is counted as 1.25% or times whatever amount of money you receive. So if you receive $1,000, it counts as 1,250 because it's not taxed. But that's neither here nor there. The debt to income is what allows this strategy to work, because you may qualify for a $700,000 house, but qualify for a $1.4 million fourplex in somewhere like San Diego because of the rental income from the other properties. Now, some lenders will tell you that you have to have landlord experience of 2 years. That's not a VA loan requirement or a VA.gov requirement. That is a lender overlay. And in a lot of situations like that, you can just tell them you're going to hire a property manager and or actually hire a property manager, and then they'll be okay with that and they'll still count the income. If not, let me know. There are other lenders who will do it. It's just a lender overlay, right? So the VA loan has very loose guidelines. So most of the time when someone's telling you it can't be done, it's more of a my institution can't do this than a it can't be done. All right. You got to be able to occupy it. You're gonna need 6 months cash reserves, which another reason for me loving the thrift savings plan, because the thrift savings plan or your 401k counts towards that 6 months reserve. So if you're going to buy a property, you've got $100,000 in your TSP, boom. Oh, Rio Gallegos. Hey, for those of you who are in the chat, you see that Rio guy who just commented, "What's up?" That's the gentleman I was talking about earlier, who had the baller ass house with the 5 bedrooms that he was renting out to other single lieutenants and captains. So hit him up. He is the man. We did a YouTube video. His house hack is awesome. All right, let's see. Tyre, it doesn't matter if the agent is a veteran or a military member. That really has nothing to do with their quality as an agent. Sometimes they might relate better, but I would actually argue that if somebody is like, if being a veteran is what they're hanging their hat on for why you should use them, then probably not. But I've got some phenomenal agents that I know and trust that are veterans, and definitely also some less than ideal agents that are veterans and agents, right? Like, or veterans and service members. So it depends on the individual person. I would ask them for their volume. I would want to know how much volume they do. Robert, if somebody's open to owner carrying, I love creative financing. I've done a lot of deals that way, but I would say the VA loan is probably better, just because you're going to be zero down and your interest rate will be lower and it's going to be fixed and whatever. But the seller carry is also awesome if you can find anyone who's down to do that. All right. I already covered the funding fee and the PMI, so we're not going to touch about that again. With a conventional loan, you can only go up to 50% debt to income ratio. With the VA loan, there's no cap. It's up to the lender. I've seen, I think, 79% at the highest point on like a almost $2 million duplex on Venice Beach. And then you're going to get lower interest rates. You can use it more than once. A lot of loans with like conventional side are going to they're going to have a interest rate hike for it being a multifamily property. The VA loan doesn't do that. And then, so I wrote on here the VA renovation loan someday. At the time that I prepared this presentation, that was on pause because of the pandemic, but it is back. And we've done a video not too long ago with Cross Country Mortgages. We had the president or VP of renovation loans on. So go to my YouTube channel and check that out. And there's a lot of information there. So cash reserves just means it's going to depend on your debt to income. And so it's going to kind of depend on your specific situation. But in some situations, lenders may require you to have 6 months in cash reserves, which just means that you could afford to pay the mortgage out of your savings for that 6 months. And that could be a savings account. That could be your 401k, an index fund, a TSP, all kinds of things. So you just need to have money set aside to cover those expenses if you like lost your job for like the first 6 months or whatever. Once you close, they don't really care. But yeah. All right. Okay. Moss Coffee. Operations order. Look at me trying to use military terms in these presentations. All right. So here's how you want to do this. You want to use the VA loan. You house hack at your first eligible duty station. Then you're going to keep every single penny that you would have spent on housing and you're going to reinvest it or save it for your next investment, right? So you're going to spend time learning and you're going to save what you would have been paying on mortgage. Don't spend it on a car. Don't buy recurring expenses with it. Just save it until you've got an investment and then invest. Or put it in index funds. That's a great strategy too. The Simple Path to Wealth, index funds, J.L. Collins, read that book. It's phenomenal. We actually just interviewed him, so in a week and a half, that podcast will come out. So check that out. All right, move out of the property when you PCS. Easy. And then it'll cash flow if you did it right. Now you're going to use the VA loan again, assuming you still have remaining entitlement, or you could use an FHA or 5% conventional loan or whatever. You've been saving money from your first house hack, so you're going to have at least a little bit of money for a down payment, and then boom, move into number two. Now you've got one house that's cash flowing and another one that you're living in for free, and you're saving what you would be spending on rent plus the cash flow, and now you're on to your next one. And then just repeat. Now you don't have to continue to live in house hacks. By after one or two or three or four or whatever, like you're going to be well on your way to financial freedom through rental properties. But the more you can do it and keep your living expenses low, the more it's going to help you, especially in like an expensive market. If you're in San Diego and you're spending $3,000 or $4,000 a month on housing, and you can make that zero or even just close to zero, you are going to save so much. I mean, that's 20, 30, $40,000 a year, 48,000 if you were spending 4,000 a month. So that's like $4,000 or $30,000 or $40,000 a year that you could reinvest. I mean, that's at least one property in the Midwest. That's probably two or three properties in the Midwest. But that's also a ton of money in index funds or a massive emergency fund. I mean, that sets you up for success so fast. All right, now I'm going to leave this up and then we'll just do some questions. So if you got questions, throw them in the chat. We'll hang out for another 10 or 15 minutes and, we'll be good. So if you scan this, it'll take you to a page that I built that just has a bunch of random contact info. So obviously you're all in my Facebook group, so you already have a lot of that, but this will take you like the Instagram, TikTok, if you want to watch me dance, that's actually my fastest growing platform. All the other things. And then I put on here also, have you heard of the War Room? I put a link down below there. Oh, what is we got? Rio. Thanks, man. Yeah, absolutely love it. So I put on here the War Room. So this webinar is definitely not a sales pitch, but I like to mention it. I don't talk about the War Room enough. So the War Room is a real estate mastermind for service members and veterans only that we have created. We've got like 160, 170, I think it's like 165-ish members in it right now. They're all service members or veterans. They're all in real estate and they are crushing it. So if you want to be in much more of a much tighter community of people who are serious action takers, I put a link in the description of this, or hit me up and I'll give you the link for the application. But it's not free. It's also not very expensive, but there's people who are crushing it in short-term rentals, syndications, anything. So it's a great group of people. Honestly, it's been probably the biggest blessing and most fun thing I've done over the last few years is being a part of that community. So anyway, let's see. Mr. Carmen, easier to qualify for a mortgage on a multifamily than a single family. I mean, it's probably relative, but I would say yes, just because on the multifamily you can count the gross rental income, which means that it'll help your debt to income, right? With a VA loan or primary residence purchase, Ashwin, you're going to have to do it under your personal name. That's the one downside. Once you move out, you can move it into an LLC. I have a video about this. It being in an LLC or in your personal name is not the end all be all, right? This is a primary residence. So if it's your only home, then it's not a big deal. Now, if you have multiple, eventually you're going to want to start refinancing them or retitling them into an LLC. But because it's in your personal name, you would probably just do the lease the same way. But personally, I would do it through a property manager because I wouldn't want to deal with that. But yeah, that's to each their own. Some people have the personality for dealing with tenants. I don't. What else you guys got? Michael, I can't tell if that's sarcasm or if you actually did miss a decent amount of the presentation. So, if you're just giving me a hard time, then, um, well, it's the fact that you're getting to live for free, and that can exponentially increase your ability to build wealth. If you're actually did miss a decent chunk of this, then the recording will be live in the Facebook group, and I will also put this recording on my YouTube channel. So, yeah, Colin, the QR code will still be available. This video will be live in the Facebook group, and I'll also put it on YouTube. So, yeah, Bob, I don't know what you're doing, man. There's a couple other seven figures Bubbas. We've got Jake Salazar, Antoine, that one Adam Whitney guy. He's, some people like him. I don't. He's only like one of my favorite peoples, but hit me up, man. Let's do it. Happy to chat. Oh, okay, cool, Michael. I read it's hard to tell on Facebook. Yeah, no, just rewatch the video here in a little bit once it's posted. There's a lot of info on it. Also, you could just go to YouTube and type in house hacking and look for my channel. Um, let's see. Umbrella insurance. I mean, so the insurance is less asset protection from like a loss. I mean, I guess it could work. That'd be a better question for your insurance provider. I'll tell you that I have umbrella policies on almost every one of my assets. So I definitely am a fan of umbrella policies. So I have like, I don't know, 250,000 or 500,000 is the minimum for every policy for me if I want the umbrella, and then I have like a $2 million umbrella policy on top of that. Um, so the VRRR, you mean the Earl, IRRRL. Okay, that threw me for a loop. Yeah, the Earl, the interest rate reduction refinance loan, is it's going to depend on the bank. I mean, you're going to have closing costs, so it's going to be a decent amount. Yes, Streamline refi is another code name for it. Um, the beauty of that, and I've got an article. If you go to the website and just search Earl, I've got an article on there um, that explains this in detail. But the benefit is that the only way that you can actually use the Earl is if your monthly payments will be so much lower that you recoup the cash in, I can't remember if it's 3 years or 5 years, but you're only going to be able to do the Earl if it actually saves you a legitimate amount of money. But you do reset the amount of the loan, and you are going to put in some fees. So, I would say it depends on if you. I would only do the Earl if you're going to own the house for a long time. Like if you're thinking you're going to sell it in 3 to 5 years, then it's not worth messing with. Uh, Mike, that's a good question. You can do the VA loan for new construction. It's a one-time use, or a one-time purchase construction loan. I forget the official terminology. I'm not super familiar with this because not a whole lot of lenders offer it, and so it's going to be super dependent on the lender. I've got a friend that does it. He actually runs vetted VA, so happy to introduce you, and he could chat through it. But I mean, the pros would just be that you're gonna have very minimal maintenance for the next few years, but the cons are that you're probably gonna pay a little bit more. Ashwin, yeah, I'm trying to build a VA loan calculator. I've got a guy who's helping me develop it. It's not it's taking longer than we ever anticipated, but we're working on that. As far as the capex piece, though, personally, I just use 7%. But I mean, that's gonna really depend because it doesn't scale. So if it's 7% on $100,000 house, that's $7,000 a year. That's or sorry, that's let me rephrase. It's 7% of rents. So if it rents for $1,000, it would be $70 a month. Um, that you put towards capex. But if you're a $1 million house that rents for $10,000 a month, you're probably not going to need to budget $700 a month for it, because like it really just boils down to like you've got to be comfortable, right? Because like your roof on $1 million house is not going to be 10 times as expensive as a roof on $100,000 house. It might be 2 or 3 times as expensive. So you need to just kind of, I kind of do like a sliding scale for myself where, well, personally, I just do 7% for everything, but that's just because I like to be conservative. My capex is actually closer to like 4 to 5% on average. But, um, you can also you can break it out piece by piece. Um, Well, Kevin, I think that's probably a better question for a provider, but for insurance for myself, I just do replacement cost. I actually do more than that now because my company has a minimum amount of insurance you're required to have in order to have an umbrella policy. But I generally, outside of that, I just do the replacement cost, and that's been sufficient. Hang out here for another minute or two, see if another question pops in, and if not, we'll call it a day. And thank you all for joining me. I hope this was helpful. And I've got a couple other webinars that I'm thinking I might do. So, let me know if you would like to see more of these. Basically, what I'm doing for these webinars is I'm just taking presentations that I've given before. So, at speaking or whatever, and I'm just repurposing them for the group. Yeah, CB, the video will be left in the Facebook group, and then I'm gonna download it and upload it to my YouTube channel as well, so you'll be able to watch it there. Cool. Well, I think that's it. So I'm gonna let you guys go. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. I'm glad that we were able to do this, and I look forward um, to the next one. You guys all have a great one. Oh, shoot. Uh, honestly, Eric, the best interest rate is super subjective. I don't get super wrapped up in that. I'm all about service. Like, I would rather have a pay an extra 0.1% and have a phenomenal lender than shop it and have like somebody who never gets back to me. But so it's all personal preference. If you're shopping two, I mean, maybe shop a third, but you probably don't need to. All right, guys, have a great day.